Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Today we have Erich Radlmann, managing partner of Spherion Staffing. Erich, welcome.
Thanks, Anthony. Great to be here.
Yeah, so we got mutually connected, I believe, from Ryan over at Nook.
Yes.
Am I nailing
absolutely.
that? Okay.
Yeah, Nick Carlson.
And they're doing a great job. And you guys are in probably one of the most productive groups I've ever met in my life, where you're constantly referring people to each other and who you meet and whatnot. And that's how we got connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are going to talk about today the 5 things most small businesses aren't doing with the hiring process. Erich, before we jump into that, tell me a little bit about yourself, what you guys are up to now at Spherion, and kind of how did you get into this?
Okay, so great question. So it all started because my father opened up one office, and it's a franchise. So he bought into the franchise in 1993.
Wow.
And then after 10 years, his kids were out of college, and he was ready to kind of walk away from the business. But he did offer it to me to see if I wanted to come into the business.
Okay.
So I came in. We opened up 3 more offices.
Awesome.
And, so now I have 3 offices in central New Jersey, so Bridgewater, Tinton Falls, and Princeton. And we have 13 employees and plus 2 interns as well. And we help companies with hiring employees. So we have probably 150 clients that we're constantly recruiting for and helping them fill the seats at their companies.
Holy smokes. That's a lot of clients. You've done a great job. Question, how did your father get into the business in 93?
Yeah, so interesting story. So he was very involved with setting up of the one-stop centers, the original unemployment offices in New Jersey.
Oh, all right.
Years ago.
Okay.
And then he was working for Johnson & Johnson as well as a corporate counselor.
Okay.
I apologize. As an employment counselor, so he was helping people with job transitions. So let's just say Johnson & Johnson had to let go of some people in Texas. He would fly to Texas and help those people with the transition and the outplacement and finding new jobs.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So when he started looking at businesses and other ways to diversify, he naturally looked at Dunkin' Donuts and fast food franchises.
Yeah.
He also looked at employment, and that was just a little bit more in his wheelhouse since he's been in employment his whole career.
That's outstanding. When you first came on, was that your first time in 03, I think you said?
Yes.
That was your first time in the staffing industry?
Yes. I mean, I had worked there in the summers in high school.
Oh, gotcha.
So
okay.
I went out on a lot of the jobs that they couldn't fill.
Yeah.
And they were great. They were great jobs. I got a chance to meet a lot of good people at a lot of great companies.
Awesome. All right, let's dive in. 5 things companies aren't doing. Starting with getting together as a team to discuss what they want/need in a candidate or role,
Right.
which is probably basically like getting on the same page of what are we looking for.
Exactly. Get on the same page. And, the analogy I like to use is like a baseball team. So if you're sitting down, the general managers are sitting down and trying to figure out what they need. They have a really good third baseman. Are they going to try to go out and get another really good third baseman, or are they going to try to lift up the levels of those other positions that they need?
Yeah.
So first, sit down as a team and figure out what are we good at and what do we need. So are we missing a really good salesperson? Are we missing a really good inside salesperson, or a designer, or perhaps a developer? You've got to figure those things out. And as a leader, when you're looking for other people to be leaders with you, you tend to gravitate people that are like you. People tend to gravitate to hire people that are like themselves.
Yeah.
But you've got to look inwardly and figure out, okay, are you an organized person? Because maybe you want to bring in and surround yourself with people who are more organized than you if you're not.
Yeah.
Or what are the skills and attributes that are missing from the organization? And then once you have those skills and attributes, then you can kind of figure out, okay, is this one position we're trying to hire for? 2 positions? Is this an entire department? What do we need? And like you said, get on the same page. You don't want to bring in a manager into a department and then have bad feelings from maybe somebody who is a senior person in that department, and now all of a sudden they got passed over.
Exactly. And how do you, question for you there, because how do you find if I'm not organized, how do I hire or look for somebody that is organized? Like it's almost counterintuitive for me to find that person or know what to look for in that person. Right. Any suggestions on that?
Right. So everybody's going to say they're organized if you ask them. So really the best thing to do is probably going to be doing those reference checks and finding out from former coworkers and managers, what was their desk like?
Okay.
Were they organized? Were they always, did they ever double book meetings? What were their attributes that they had there? And if you get enough, you really want to check a lot of references when you do this. And don't just check the references that they hand you. Definitely get the prior managers that they have for each of their last few jobs. Okay,
so going a little bit deeper on each of those things and asking the questions specific to what you're actually looking for, but maybe not saying were they organized, asking like leading questions on what did their desk look like? Did they double book meetings? I think that's really good stuff because the person's not going to just be like, oh, they want a yes to this question,
And there are, an organization might be a tough one, but there are. You do want to use the STAR technique, where it's situational behavioral interview questions.
Okay.
So let's just say you sit down in that boardroom and you're figuring out what attributes you're looking for. And one of them is management. You want to make sure that you're going to be asking behavioral interview questions of each of your candidates consistently across each of your candidates. Tell me about a time you had a coworker who was struggling or somebody you were managing that was struggling.
Okay.
What was the situation? How did you help them overcome those obstacles and thrive?
Gotcha.
You don't want to make a mistake in hiring somebody at a management level that hasn't managed people before.
Exactly.
So asking several questions around what they've done is a way to try to figure that out.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to have to, you probably have a resource for this STAR technique.
I was going to say, why don't we make that available? Why don't I give you a sheet?
Okay.
It's not going to have every single attribute, but at least a few with the questions you would ask. And then I think people would kind of put it together. Oh yeah, now I get it. Now you can.
Yeah, that'll be great. We'll make sure Ty gets that, and we'll link it in the show notes, and we can also add it as like a resource on the site and whatnot, and link back to you guys. So we'll definitely make sure we get that from you. Let's go on to the next one. Spend more time interviewing and recruiting.
When we're meeting with companies and they're saying they're having a hard time finding people, one of the first questions we ask is, well, how much time are you spending doing recruiting? How much time are you involved with interviewing candidates? And usually it's less than 5% of their time.
Okay.
I mean, if anything, you're lucky if they're doing it an hour a week.
Yeah.
Typically, companies are looking once somebody gives their 2 weeks notice. Sally gives her 2 weeks notice, wow. And now here we go. We got to start looking for somebody. And what we recommend to companies is always be hiring, always be looking for that next person. Jack Welch, who was a CEO of GE from 1981 to 2001 for 20 years.
Yeah.
The stock price increased 4,000% while he was the CEO there.
Phew.
And one of the things that he consciously did was spend a lot of time. He famously spent about 50% of his time interviewing top talent and recruiting.
Wow.
And
50. You said 50%.
Yeah,
wow.
So half of his time. And if you have that kind of dedication to meeting people, networking, discovering new talent, you're going to be able to be a very successful company.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And how can you expect a good result, or you can almost guarantee you're going to struggle with it if you're only spending 5% of your time doing it? Yeah. Come on, we got to invest.
Not bad.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good.
If you spend 5%, that would be pretty good. Okay. I think we find, it's less than an hour a month that people are really involved with. Jesus.
Assessments. You brought up assessments, and the first thing I kind of hit you with a couple questions right away. I was like,
what kinds, how many, and does that turn off a candidate potentially? So can you walk us through what you mean by assessments and some of those follow-up questions?
Yeah, so first of all, you're going to try to decide what those assessments are when you meet as a team. What is the process going to be from beginning to end? So the assessments can be soft skills assessments like personality traits, conscientiousness, reasoning, listening, or it could be hard skills. Do they know how to use pivot tables for Excel?
Gotcha.
Do they know how to do C++ programming? So these are some of the hard skills that we have as well that we can test for. And then on top of that, and more and more, it's common that you get an actual freelance assignment from a company before you're going to start.
Oh,
so,
okay. So like almost like a project.
Yeah,
okay.
Project, or they might have. So that might be the assessment. If you're going to be a graphic designer for a company, they might give you a short assignment. Here's what you need to do. Here's the color palette. Here's our logo. Create a flyer. Overnight, create a flyer, and we'll pay you for it. But
wow, awesome!
So,
that's good stuff.
And we typically we recommend that companies pay something for this to do the work because you don't want them resenting you as a company.
Yeah.
You want them speaking well of you afterwards.
Yeah, and it's showing that you as a company have some skin in the game as well. Like we're not just going to send this out to 1,000 people and every 1,000 person does this and it's free and we pick the best one. No, we have some skin in the game as well.
Yeah, correct. So sometimes if it's a developer, it might be a coding exercise that you do overnight. If it's an office admin that has to do a lot of Excel work, it might be an Excel spreadsheet that they have to create and maybe export to Microsoft Access to do some queries on, depending on the skill set that you need, it's going to be what your
and what are the results when companies do this and you're helping them figure out what this may be? What are the results of the candidates that come through, make it through that process?
Yeah, so you're just going to have people that are more technically capable of handling this, and then they're going to have an understanding of the type of work as well.
Okay.
And then furthermore, you're going to be able to talk with your group about how they did on that assessment collectively, so you get buy-in from everybody. So it really does decrease the amount of turnover substantially. I don't really have statistics for you.
No, that's good.
But you're going to find that you're probably going to cut your turnover in half just by doing something like that.
Agreed, because I think it's getting the candidate ready for the role. So, say they get the project and they don't like it or they complete it and they're like, maybe this isn't the right role for me. And the company knows exactly what they're walking into. Does the company share the feedback with the candidate?
Typically to an extent.
Okay.
So let's just say you're doing a social media marketing position. You want the person to write an article about the top 3 things happening within IT. Small business IT. You might give them some direction. Hey, we really like this. There wasn't a lot of examples that you threw in to make it interesting. But just want to give you some advice for next time to try to make it more enjoyable as a reader.
Okay.
Or you might give some constructive feedback, of course.
Yeah.
If it took them 3 days to get it to you instead of the 24 hours that you told them, then it's an easier feedback situation.
Yeah. But, you got to hit deadlines.
Yeah, you got to hit deadlines. That's that's part of the.
No, that's interesting because I could see like as you get say you get 3 samples back, right, that are really good. I could see almost giving the feedback to the person almost in person potentially or over the phone. How do they gauge that feedback and are they open to it? That may help almost narrow that field a little bit more.
That's a really good point. Yeah, if you can't decide between 2 people, that's an excellent suggestion, is to give that feedback and then see how they interact with that.
Like it. All right, cool. Any negatives to assessments and how many and whatnot?
So the how many is a great question. So sometimes we have one client in particular where we put people through 7 assessments. It takes about 2.5 hours.
Wow.
Now it just so happens that these positions are at the top of the pay range.
Okay.
They have fantastic benefits, pension, etc. So people are lining up for these positions. We had one, so they might fill 3 positions. It might be 1,800 people that we evaluate for those 3 positions. Just to give you an idea of the demand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So a lot stringent, more strict on exactly what you need to do, and you can get away with a little bit more as well.
Correct. So, but you're not going to be able to get away with it if it's a developer and they've got, they raise their hand and they have 3 job offers.
Yeah.
So so for somebody like that, you really want to make sure it's a quicker 1 hour type of assessment, something they can do, and not have them jump through so many hoops that they're not even going to finish.
No, I like that. Multiple people from the company should interview this. Interview this individual, interview people. Interested to just get your general ideas on that, kind of who, is it only executives and managers? Does it incorporate teammates potentially as well? How do you lead companies on that and that?
So back when I was dating my now wife, I think every company is kind of like that. You've got to meet the parents, the in-laws before you got to get their buy-in. You got to get some of the buy-in from some of the friends.
Yeah.
And then and only then do they decide if you're a right fit for the culture of this family or this organization.
I never thought about it that way. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you want to make sure there's at least a couple of people that are going to meet that person, if not 3. If your company is a 5-person company and you work tightly together, probably all 5 people should at least have a 30-second conversation with that person and talk to them. But ideally, you're going to have really good, if let's just say it's a mid-level manager position, you're probably going to want to have the most senior person on that team interview that person.
That makes sense.
To get their buy-in, because you don't want to create animosity between that senior member and that manager. And then the next level manager, and probably a lateral manager as well.
Gotcha.
So I would say most organizations are probably going to want to have 3 interviews. And in this market, this brings up a great point. Try to have all 3 of those interviews in one day. Don't expect this person to come back 2-3 times for multiple interviews. Just get it done at one time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I always joke. I had a couple conversations with our CEO, Rashad, on the phone back and forth. And then I was like, all right, I think this makes sense to come on in. And I always called it the gauntlet. And it was our controller, our director of engineering, our director of marketing. And it made sense because those were the people I was going to be interacting with every single day. But they did make it simple and easy where everybody was in the same room. And, we were able to ask questions back and forth. And it worked out well because I knew what I was walking into and they knew what they were all getting in return.
And I don't want to make the mistake. So if you have the culture where the CEO meets with every candidate, that's great too. At a minimum, I just think that they should meet with probably those 3 people. So certainly there's going to be organizations where top executives want to meet with every.
Yeah, I've heard some of these tech companies that scale. They recommend like the CEO meets for the first 250 employees. And that's but then they build these cultures and they can control it a little bit more. Not saying that's for everybody, but I've heard examples of that and I was like, wow, that's intense. But they built the culture that kind of supports that. So.
Yeah, I think the bigger mistake is just to have one person.
Yes.
Have them come in and just meet with the CEO and not all the people they're going to be working with.
Yeah,
that's a little bit.
Okay, so definitely stay away from that.
Yeah.
Why partner with a recruiting firm? So kind of, and I touched on some things like why, what's the benefit, what's the estimated cost, what's the ROI. So this is really your turn to shine on like what's going on in the staffing firm world.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And whether you work with us or there's lots of great recruiting companies out there as well, you can certainly work with any one of them. Yeah. But I think it comes down to the time. We talked about it earlier. People just aren't spending the time to doing the actual recruiting and the feet on the street, grassroots recruiting that needs to get done. Our company, between the 3 offices, we see 90 candidates a week in our offices.
Oh my goodness!
If you had to kind of replicate that in your office, just the amount of time that it takes is difficult.
Yeah.
Plus, we're going to have a recruiting process. We're going to keep you honest into your recruiting process and make sure that it's consistent across all of your hires.
Yeah.
Which is something that becomes very valuable. And the problem is the cost of a bad hire. That's really what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
When you make a bad hire, the estimates are all over the place. But let's just say you make a bad hire and they last a month. Typically, the actual cost to the business could be 50% of the cost of that salary. I've heard estimates that could be for a salesperson, that could be 100% of the compensation for a year. So making a bad hire is really the thing we're all trying to avoid. And then in terms of cost, we really have a wide range and kind of a we can have a solution for every budget.
Yeah.
Typically, our most common thing is where you're going to have a direct hire. It's going to be a small retainer plus a percentage of the person's first year salary.
Understood. That makes sense. Yeah, I've the same thing on the cost. You'll see stuff all over LinkedIn on that, especially for me in the sales world. They do say it's upwards of 150%. To bring that person on, you got the onboarding time, and 5 months in, they're out the door, and now you got to do the whole process again, and the costs related with that. So that's definitely a reason. The other thing you mentioned there was the amount of interviews you guys are doing on a weekly basis, and to me that just goes right to experience. How could I duplicate 90 interviews a week? I can't. I can't duplicate that experience that you guys are seeing and that repetition, which is making you guys really good at what you do.
Right, and when somebody comes to us, and we have 150 companies we're recruiting for, we're really looking at multiple opportunities and multiple cultures to try to see where this person is the best fit.
Gotcha.
So we get to a point where we know that this company really likes this type of person. They really like people who kind of keep their head down and just do their job and just get through a pile of paperwork, and that's all they like to do, versus somebody who's really perky and wants to be around in an environment where they're constantly interacting. And
no, that makes sense.
So these are the types of things when you see, and people come in, and let's just say you're hiring for a part-time position. It's very challenging to know if the person you're looking at across the table really wants a part-time position. They'll just take anything now, but they ultimately want a full-time position. But when you work with a recruiting company, that person has their pick of a lot of different positions that they can go to, and they're specifically telling you, no, I want a part-time position. These are the hours I can work.
Okay.
And now you've got somebody who, at least that's one less challenge you're going to have to worry about, is them trying to leave for a full-time position in the near future.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Actually, one of our clients has told me that their biggest issue was that people will take a job with them just to get quick experience and then market themselves to New York City because that's where they can pay more and all this stuff. And it was like, I literally feel like I'm filling roles with people that eventually just want to go to New York anyway.
Yeah.
And you can help prevent that, you know, which is really good.
And let me just say one other thing, which I know we didn't talk about before.
Yeah.
But they're hired, they're in the seat, now what? And we think there's a lot of companies that are they bring people in and they don't have a training plan. We would probably recommend at least a 30-day training plan. Have it scripted out, what this person's going to do for the first 30 days. Ideally, 30, 60, 90. Always checking in with the person, trying to figure out where the issues are. You know, what do they like doing? What do they not like doing? What do they wish they were doing more of? You know, find all of those things out early on so you can kind of course correct as needed, because you don't want to lose that. I absolutely love that, because I don't think a lot of companies focus on that. They focus on like, let's get the right candidate in. We found somebody we love. Well, all right, what's the roadmap for them success? How do they know they're doing good? How do they know they're doing bad? And you know, if you don't have that 30-day, 60-day plan, they don't know and you don't know, and then it's just touch and feel, right? It's like, what's that term? It's just like gut almost, really, and it's not really measurable. Yeah, we get those. The gut is an interesting thing. People say that, you know, within the first 2 minutes, people are making a hiring decision. Somebody walks in the room, and you're deciding within 2 minutes, and you know, you're not doing assessments. They're not having multiple people and getting opinions from other people, and then you've got situations where people are coming in the door, and you're not training them. All of these things just create that turnover. Wow. Great stuff. I love this concept. I think everybody's struggling with it. I think everybody can get better at it. So I really hope we'll link to the company, your LinkedIn profile and everything, so make sure people can get access to you. Great. Flipping the script to some personal questions. What organizations have been valuable to you during this career growth and company growth you've experienced? Great. So first of all, the networking groups, the leads groups and referral groups that I've been a part of have been amazing. Okay. I've met so many great business owners. So these are like your Latips and B&Is. Gotcha. You know, one person per category. Those types of groups have been amazing. Okay. You not only have an opportunity to get business, but also to learn from other people who are successful. Yeah. And to introduce them and help them in their careers. And then the also CEO roundtables. Been in a few of these where people are getting together. They're talking about their challenges, how can you help them? I've gotten so much good advice over the years from those as well.
That's awesome. So get out there. Who's a mentor or a leader that has helped you?
So probably easy for me to answer. My dad. I worked so closely with him for so many years. And he actually passed away a couple of years ago. But there's a lot of values and culture that he has instilled within the organization. And for example, communication, speaking open and honestly, trying to get feedback from people, let them speak their minds, and then actually kind of taking that feedback and doing something with it. So that's been huge, as well as always taking the high road. Whenever you're going to have situations with clients and coworkers, get in the room, figure out what the problem is, and then solve it so you can be amicable. And then if it requires us taking a little bit of a hit and to keep the high road, or to not get dirty, then do that.
Yeah, and that's great lessons he's taught you, and that probably has led to your success, which is outstanding. And the whole point on get your ego out of the way, take the high road. There's goals here. We're trying to do things, and I can remove myself from this and keep it moving. Yeah, I love it.
That's a great way of saying that.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
This is also something that I would say get started with whatever you want to do. Just jump in and get started. So I think for 15 years, I knew I needed to do email marketing.
Okay.
And I didn't do it. And I started doing it about a year and a half ago. And the difference is, it's unbelievable, the number of leads and just connections and people that I've spoken to, or that we've spoken to as a company, just from doing email marketing. And it was such an easy thing to do. And just get started, just do it. I had typos and mistakes in my first email. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Just do it and you would be so happy you did.
No, that's good advice. Just get moving. Make the decision and go. And you can course correct from there if needed. Love it. Any nonprofits or charities that you support, or the organization supports, that you'd like to give a little shout out to?
Yeah, great. So and I'm not going to name it. I'll name one specifically, but every year we pick 3 charities.
Okay.
And we do a $1,000 donation to the charities, but they're all local charities that we like to get involved with.
I love it.
So the Arc of Somerset is the one that I was going to mention.
Okay.
Where we actually went out and did an arts and crafts with the members that are part of the Arc of Somerset.
Okay.
And it was awesome. I mean, you get to sit next to these people, help them with the craft. These are all people that are mentally or physically challenged.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a great way to be a part of the community, and it was just a great activity for our whole office to do.
Correct.
And to get involved.
No, and good for you guys for doing that and looking at 3. I love the local charities thing too. Sometimes we get some big ones, but what's in our backyard that we in the communities that we live in? How can we help those organizations? So we'll make sure Ty, you link to the Arc of Somerset. And we'll do that.
Great.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
It was so much fun.
Awesome. Now we're going to play a little basketball potentially. We both have suits on, so I don't know how that's going to work.
Maybe ping pong.
Oh yeah, ping pong. I got an appointment to go to, so that may be a little tough. But this is how relationships start. This is the connections that we make. And everybody, this is Erich Radlmann, managing partner of Spherion Staffing.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.